Meghan Schlageter will now share her ideas on the pros and cons of competition.
By show of hands, how many of you have ever been in a competition or simply been playing a board game with someone who's, let's say, 5 years old? Now, how many of you probably let the child win? Why? Most people assume, as egotistical as it may seem, that you're better than them, so you'll let them win. Or you may simply assume that you're building up their confidence and ultimately aiding their growth as a person. Let's see if that's true. Popular Today Show personalities Hoda Kotb and Tamron Hall admit that when racing their children, to be specific, they always let them win, while Carson Daly has a very specific approach. Out of every 4 times he races his children, on the first 3 times he lets them win, and on the 4th run he leaves them in the dust. Through following their studies, the Today Show ultimately found that until a child has reached the age of 4 years old, you should always let them win. Additionally, actor Robert De Niro described in a recent People magazine what the latest board game he played was. He said, "I played checkers with my daughter yesterday. I'm just now teaching her the basics, so I let her win. We're not at that stage yet where I can beat her." Both suggest that there's a certain time and place in which we're allowed to lose, that failure is preventable until a certain age. Author Julie Haynes describes in her best-selling book, How to Raise an Adult, the problems associated with overparenting, and how failure in many aspects of life is essential for growth, responsibility, and independence. As a former tenured dean of Stanford University, she describes how on more than a few occasions, parents lingered well past orientation. Now, I know it might be hard saying goodbye to that firstborn child, but on more than a few instances, parents remained on campus to help their child resolve a problem with the teacher or find a class. At the time, she was also a parent to 2 kids, both around the ages of 9 years old. And like most parents, she cut their food for them. She didn't think much of it until she prompted these questions in Weekly magazine. When do we stop holding their hand? When do we let them walk someplace alone? When do we let them talk to strangers? When do we stop crossing the street with them? All of a sudden, I understood what 18-year-olds might be showing up a little more attached to mom and dad. These tiny micro steps towards independence had not been taken along the way. Judith Locke from Queensland University describes overparenting as your parents' misguided attempt to improve their child's current and future academic success. This study came into the possession of Jessica Leahy as she noticed one of her students in class' attention was dwindling. She stated, "Above all else, we taught her to fear failure. That fears had destroyed her love of learning. Is that what we want? For students to get straight A's but hate learning?" In my opinion, this derives from a misconception of the word failure. Most students here can testify that when receiving a test back from a teacher, various forms of, I totally failed that, fly about the room. When in actuality, you received what? A B? According to Oak Knoll's Community Guide and many other high schools, I'm sure, a B is considered proficient performance. So why is proficient performance considered a failure? Going back to Jessica Leahy's point, parents have, even with the best intentions at heart, created an atmosphere in which a letter grade is more important than the information itself. And it teaches students to adapt to a class based on how the teacher assesses you rather than how you learn. Another cause of this misconception of the word failure is student-on-student competition. In other words, you strive to receive the best position or grade out of your peers. For example, if I received a test back and got a 40%, I, by definition, failed, but if everyone else received a 30, I technically won. How does that make any sense? Student-on-student competition is definitely not the only cause of this fear of failure I mentioned before, because let's be honest, competition is everywhere. Competition is the lifeblood of society and one of the world's greatest motivators. In fact, there are even websites such as CompeteEveryday.com that use competition among fellow viewers as a way to motivate them to maintain a healthy lifestyle, as well as selling their clothing. But how does competition create a fear of failure? Well, let's consider something very big in the news recently, the presidential election. Ever since we were little, we've been asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And one of the most cliche responses is, President of the United States. So if thousands of kids aspire to be president from a young age, why do few of them ever run? A poll conducted by ABC News states that the percentage of people who desire to become president drops by 13% between the ages of 12 to 14 and 15 to 17. Most of the conductees claimed that they simply weren't interested in politics or it didn't look like fun. But I like to believe that most of them were afraid of failure, although few actually admitted it. Because who would? Who wants to admit that they fear failure? Because who wants to admit that they fail? The quote I discovered this fall, and I think it relates very well to this talk, is from the documentary 180 Degrees South. Yvonne Trainard and Doug Tompkins, two amazing people, but that's for another talk. They describe, in response to people saying, "You can't go back," I say, well, what happens when you get to the edge of the cliff? You take one step forward or do a 180-degree turn and take one step forward. Which way's progress? Most of the world's problems can be solved by turning around and taking a forward step. You just can't keep trying to make a flawed system work. Sometimes the best thing you can do is admit you messed up and turn around, try again, and try so that you may succeed the second time. But like I mentioned before, people don't like to admit that they failed. So what do? We push ourselves further and further into competition until competition is everywhere. Competition moves from the classroom to the gym, from the gym to the NBA, from the NBA to your brackets at home, from your brackets at home to war. Big jump, I know, but all jokes aside, war is competition. The basic principle of war is two forces, often countries, competing for power or to prove who's right. And if along the way their opinion is swayed, well, you never hear that in the news. So they continue to battle towards something they're not even sure is right anymore, until there's a clear winner and a clear loser. The drive to win is so strong, yes, it motivates us, but it can motivate us down the wrong path as well. So why do we care so much about winning? Well, I believe it starts from the first moment we're allowed to lose until the first moment we feel failure. And we're taught that with practice, we will succeed again. But we're also taught that when choosing between winning and losing, winning is always the best option. So now I'd like to end by asking you all to picture your favorite. All right, favorite might not be the best word for this topic, but picture your favorite dystopian society. For my purposes, I'm going to be using the popular book and movie series The Hunger Games, in which a government is depicted to have created a game in which tributes compete for survival, wealth and social standings, and serve as entertainment to the public. Now let's consider the World Cup, a game in which competitors compete for survival because, let's be honest, Laura Bassett will never live this down. They obviously also compete for wealth and social standings and serve as great entertainment to us, the public. This dystopian society has simply taken everyday competition to the next step and subsequently created a world of chaos. So now I'd like to call into question the idea of a utopian society. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes utopia as an imaginary place in which government, laws, and social conditions are perfect. So is it possible that the only way to arrive at such a perfect world is to wipe out competition altogether? Crazy, but imagine never having to compete for another job. Imagine never having to, for us high schoolers, compete to get into college. Imagine never having to camp out for those Black Friday deals, and imagine never having to lose another loved one in service. The second piece of Merriam-Webster's definition is that utopia is an impractical scheme for social improvement. Impractical. True, a world without competition isn't practical, but isn't necessarily impossible. Thank you.
Thank you, Meghan.